see a tale that's just begun. Together we roar, together we cry. Detroit Lions will rise, with a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown.
All right, good morning, everybody. It is the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It's Friday, October 4th already. Can you believe it? This week has just completely disappeared. Eric, how you doing this morning, man?
Good, and the weather just flipped.
Oh, yeah, nice and cold.
Yeah. There was frost in the air, and you could see your breath as I walked out to the studio this morning.
Hey, I love the cold weather, though. It feels good, man. You leave a window open at night, you get a real good deep sleep, man. Almost like a bear hibernating, I guess, if you will. Feels good, especially when you're off for a week. It's going to be a slow week this week. Obviously, not a whole lot going on for us, but next week we'll ramp it back up. But today we're going to have a conversation about the Q1 report. It's something that I mentioned on Tuesday that we're going to try to get to this week, and I see that quite a few writers had the same idea. So on Thursday and I think part of Wednesday, there was a few writers that were putting out some Q1 reports. So we'll piggyback off of some of the work that they've done. They always do good work, but I'm glad that we kind of think, and have the same ideas here, that Q1 report is necessary. Where are we at? Because there's a lot of Lions fans right now that they're kind of like a mixed bag, if you will. Like they're not happy that we're 3-1. I don't understand. We're still crying about pass rushers. I don't understand. This Lions team is far and away better than where it was last year. I understand we're not starting 5-0 or 4-0, right? But we are a much, much better team. Yep, haven't started hot on offense, but week 4 was our best production so far. When you look at the numbers in totality, what does it tell you? And we are a much better team. I have much more confidence for this season than I do last year at this time, even though last year we had a week 2 loss, right? We're kind of in the same boat, same record. But I didn't have any confidence in the defense last year because they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything at all. And by week 4 of last year compared to this year, there's a stark difference. So we're going to talk about some of that stuff this morning. Let me see what I even put on the roster. It's going to be a very light roster. Today's going to be a lot of conversation. Where did the roster go? My bad. Sorry about that. So on the roster today, Q1, we'll do a rookie recap. We're going to do an overall recap for the Lions, and then kind of a statement on all 32 teams. Where are they at? The Falcons, they ended my streak. I had 4 Thursday night calls in a row of the team winner, and the Bucs had it won. It was a fight till the end. It was a great game last night. Todd Bowles really screwed it up. I don't know what they were doing at the end of that game, but they ended my streak. So now I am 4-1 for Thursday night calls. But maybe I'll have a better 1 p.m. time slot this week. And then the second hour, I want to talk about the pass rush by committee, the defense overview, and kind of where we're sitting. How much has it changed? What is it looking like for the rest of the season? So, Eric, what's I guess tippy top of your brain today? What's going on?
Well, you had me looking at this NFL Pro, right?
Yeah.
And looking at the defense stuff, and I just happened to notice something. The Lions happen to have 3 pass rushers in the top 20.
Mm-hmm. And who might they be?
Aiden Hutchinson,
Expected.
at number 1.
Right.
Number 13, you have Aleem McBeal. And then at number 20, you have Levi O. And there is no other team in the top 20 with 3 pass rushers in the top 20.
Well, let's be careful when we call them pass rushers, right? So they're getting pass rush grades. And I think that's another thing that I'll chat about in the second hour too, is I think people are using this pass rusher term a little too loosely. There is a defined position for a pass rusher, right? It's not a defensive lineman. You have defensive linemen that do well in pass rush, right? And I'm not saying you said anything wrong, Eric. I think what you're looking at is the NFL Pro is ranking them in pass rush, right? And how well
Yeah.
they're doing in the pass rush. Did we have 3 players in the top 20 last year through week 4? Nope,
No.
not even close. And I think it's kind of hilarious to me that people keep crying, why does my volume keep going low? Hold on a second here. Let me fix this.
Okay.
We got, maybe I didn't adjust the echo. Hold on. Nope. Echo cancellation. That's got to be on. All right. Let me fix this one more time. We should be good. Okay. And I'm back. So I want to be careful how we, call these positions: pass rush, edge rush, edge, linebacker, pass rushing linebacker. I mean, there's defined differences. I mean, everyone can be a pass rusher, or everyone can rush the passer, I should say. All of the defensive linemen are going to get some sort of a grade when it comes to that part of the game. But at the end of the day, the Lions didn't have 3 players in the top 20 last year rushing the passer through week 4. And what's hilarious to me is we have 2 defensive tackles in the top 20. Not edge rushers, tackles, which is exactly what we needed. And if I don't stop talking about it right now, we're going to end up going into the hour 2 segment. So
Yeah.
I'm going to digress off of it. We're going to jump back into the quarter 1 report, starting with the rookies.
Yeah.
So
I just happened to see that. Thought it was quite interesting.
no, it is. I mean, I think it speaks volumes to what this defense is doing, what they're trying to do. And the other side of that, now I don't claim to know everything about the different schemes, because look, the NFL changes things consistently. They call it different things. They go through ebbs and flows with how defenses, change over time. But there's one big thing I think that people that don't spend enough time on this, and they just kind of are big blowhards. The Detroit Lions don't run a single gap scheme. So to call everybody a pass rusher is wrong, number one, just because of the type of scheme that they run. They are 4-3 base in a gap and a half scheme is what they run. They're not in a 3-4 single gap. They're not in a 4-3 single gap. They are in a gap and a half, 4-3 base. Now, they are not always in a 4-3. But when you look at other teams that run a 3-4, they're going to have 2 outside linebackers up on the line. So now you have a 5-man front versus a 4-man front. So you have 2 extra, what are bona fide pass rushers, as outside linebackers. It's totally different. So when people are calling for a Matthew Judon or Eric Armstead or whomever, right? Those players are playing totally different positions. It doesn't jive. So I guess I would challenge people to do a little bit of research about what these defensive alignments actually mean before, we say that we need this person or that person, because if we did, I think that you would have already seen it happen. But let's talk about Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold's had a pretty rough start to the season. And I'd like to compare him to Kool-Aid, right? His former teammate. And a lot of people were, in the same boat, whether it was Kool-Aid or Terrion Arnold. I think that we would have been happy. And I was okay with either. I was higher on Terrion's upside than I was with Kool-Aid. I thought that we would probably get, if we ended up with McKinstry, I felt that, or McKinstry, sorry. I felt that we would have got a guy that had maybe a little bit less of a ceiling. Like he was coming in maybe kind of at or close to where he was going to end up being as a professional. By year 3, obviously, he would probably hit his ceiling. But with Terrion, I feel like the ceiling is much higher. And even Sauce Gardner had something to say about Terrion Arnold the other day on Twitter. He had mentioned that, obviously watching Terrion Arnold, said that Terrion is entering his man defense a little too low. He would rather see Terrion, stand up a little bit more. I don't know why that would make such a big difference for Terrion Arnold and how he's playing right now. Maybe it's a positional thing. I honestly haven't done a whole lot of research into the stance and what does a lower stance mean compared to a higher stance off the snap. But I could see where if you're standing a little bit more upright, maybe it would give you a little bit better of an angle, if you will, or maybe he wouldn't have to move as much, which means maybe he's able to stay a little bit more hip to hip, or he's in a better circumstance. I don't really know. I'm going to have to look into it. So I thought it was interesting that was the only thing that Sauce Gardner pointed out. He didn't say anything about the penalties. Didn't say anything about the pass interference stuff, right? It was his stance. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Really, really good to see, though, that even Sauce Gardner, believes in Terrion Arnold. So Terrion Arnold so far through the season, not having a good start with the penalties, but I would say that he is a much better overall corner than what we had on the team last year. Now I'm going to take this snippet right out of SI.com. So it says Arnold has experienced his fair share of struggles to start his career. He suited up and started in all 4 Lions games. He's racked up 16 total tackles and 3 passes defensed. Yet the 2024 number 24 overall pick has also looked like a rookie in an overwhelming amount of the reps he's logged up to this point. Through 4 games, he's recorded a passer rating against of 98.4, which I would tell you is better than every corner we had on the team last year, and has earned a subpar Pro Football Focus grade of 48.8 for coverage, and against the run, 51.6. He's also posted an underwhelming overall mark of 47.6. Along with all of that, he's had difficulty avoiding being penalized. In fact, through the first quarter of the season, he's already accounted for 8 penalties. So he's averaging 2 per game, including a career high 3 this past Monday against the Seattle Seahawks. What is your number one takeaway, good and bad, for Terrion Arnold?
Well, I love his hips, and I love the fact that his feet.
I don't have a pause button on that. I'll let that one slide.
Well, the way he flips his hips and his feet are in the proper space. So he's not out of position. He's hip to hip with these guys. He's right in the pocket. That I love. I love him using his brain. He's in the proper space. He's where he's supposed to be. The only thing we got to work on, we got to get him some oven mitts. All right. Get him some oven mitts and tape them suckers on so he can't get them off. And he just needs to quit grabbing the receivers and we'll be good. That's it. For as far as I can see, the only thing he really needs to work on is being less grabby. If he can be less grabby with the wide receivers, hey, man, he's got one heck of a rest of the season in front of him. He'll be just fine.
I would agree. I think that, the biggest knock that I had on Terrion Arnold coming into this season was the fact that he was a bit grabby. And I felt that it wasn't going to be as big of a problem once he got into the system and started, getting trained by the Detroit Lions staff. I felt that they were going to work on it. I felt that, there's a bigger opportunity for him to kind of play with his hands in his pockets, which is what I call it. It's a style, it's a technique, it's a way of training. Literally put your hands in your pockets. Now there's no pockets in, football pants. So you have to kind of wear a belt, tuck it inside your belt, and you got to run down the field. And it's very awkward to train that, but it's meant to be awkward. And that's because the more awkward it feels, the better you're going to be at the end of that training. If you can just keep your hands tucked at your sides and then utilize them, where needed. So you get up, you jam, right? You put those hands right back down. You're flipping down the field. You're running. You're hip to hip with the receiver. And then the hands come back out to knock the ball away, make the tackle, go up for the interception, whatever. But between jam and ball, those hands need to be in your pockets. To your point, oven mitts, it's kind of the same. Have him wear some oven mitts while he's practicing, because it'll make him think I got to keep my hands down. I got to keep my hands. It's a stupid practice, and you would think that professionals don't need it, but honestly, they do, right? I mean, not only do they need, hands training, hand skills, hand fighting, ball skills, right? They've got to go each and every day learning how to pull down an interception, but they have to learn how to keep those hands to themselves, so to speak. Now, when he was drafted, his strengths that I felt, he had a very impressive frame, right? He had ideal size, height, solid build, quick, good length for a corner. I felt he was very confident. Clearly that has been the case. I mean, he's exuded nothing but confidence since he's been in the NFL. He showed good patience, but he was also aggressive at the point of attack. Very efficient footwork. I mean, his footwork was so clean, very, very clean for a young rookie. And I think a lot of this comes from, the way the Alabama, coaches up their guys, the way Nick Saban, kind of gets in and does his thing. And he's the last breed of a Nick Saban, cornerback room, which is going to be a dying breed, I feel like, in the NFL, obviously soon. But very fluid hips, good explosion. Off the snap, very fluid when he had to flip and run, and mirror matched very well. But the biggest, and then he was also a very good hitter, tackler, wrap up type of tackler, which is what we wanted to see. You're not going to come into the Detroit Lions as a rookie if you can't tackle, number one, and two, if you're not good against the run. I mean, that is a staple in this defense. You have to be good against the run. If you look at all of the corners that we brought in, all of the safeties that we brought in to this point, their run defense grade is typically their best grade. It's not supposed to be that way, but thankfully they were doing one thing very well, which was defending the run very well. And we've been the better team against the run in the NFL. I mean, one of the best teams. Now, some of his weaknesses where he wasn't as great in zone. And I think this is where he has trouble. Terrion, in my opinion, is a guy that needs to be up in your face. He needs to be up with you, body, right? Running down the field, staying close, which is where he is. I mean, he finishes next to the receiver every time. So much so that he's getting penalized for it because he's not allowing distance between him and the receiver. And I think that's a great quality to have. But now how are you going to use it to your advantage? So he wasn't great in zone. He was a better press man corner. And AG's had him in a lot of zone for good reason. And we'll talk about some of that stuff when we get into the defensive conversation, in the second hour. But he, being so physical, I think, is where he's having some issues. And he wants to do well, right? He doesn't want anybody to complete a ball on him, which I totally respect. But right now, there's a difference between not getting those 15 yards or those spot fouls, which is giving the offense an opportunity. I mean, thankfully, this defense has done a pretty good job at fighting back against these penalties. So overall, where would you give him a grade? Where do you think that he can be at the end of the season?
Man, honestly, I'd have to give him like a C right now. Just because the hands, he's got to get the hands under control. Everything else is fine. I think he's going to be just fine. I think he's going to end up being one heck of a player for the Detroit Lions. He just needs to get this whole hand control thing under control. Stop grabbing the receivers in the end zone, giving them all these free yards way down there.
Yeah.
And I know some of it's ticky-tacky. I know it is. And I know when we get to playoff football, they're not going to call this stuff, but we're not doing playoff football right now. We're in the regular season, and they're just not going to let it go.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned playoffs because at this point, I think that we need to see Terrion Arnold kind of grow and have a trajectory that is going to end up in, the bucket, at the end of the season that, I started here and I've grown this much. Penalties are a lot less and they're fewer and far between. I love his aggressiveness. I just feel like he's been pushed into a style of play that maybe he needed the most work on. And maybe that he's getting this work early in the season. It's going to benefit him towards the end of the season. I hope that makes sense. that I see his growth happening much quicker. At the end of the day, look, he's one of the best corners, in my opinion, in the NFL right now, with how fluid he is at sticking with the receiver. I mean, last year, Jerry Jacobs would be 10 yards away from receiver when they're catching the ball. And even when, he had closer coverage, they would catch the ball and they would still get 6, 7, 8 yards. When Terrion is going up against somebody that catches a ball, he's pretty much dropping them right there, which is very difficult to do. Terrion does not let up a ton of yak yards. And he is a wrap tackler. I mean, he does like to wrap his big, long arms around you and not just do, a shoulder bump. I mean, those types of things are, they're needed in certain spots. When a receiver's headed out of bounds, you just, you hit him and, finish him out of bounds. But I think he has a good identity there where he knows if he has to wrap up or if he can play a little soft and just finish the play. But I think right now I would have to give him a C- for the penalties, right? I mean, way too many penalties. But to someone's point in the chat, we can't control the refs. And you saw in this last game against the Seahawks where, Carlton Davis was flagged 3 times. He hasn't been flagged in 21, 22 games prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly there's an issue with the refs here. I mean, how does a player that doesn't get flagged for a season and a half, or season and a quarter, all of a sudden get flagged 3 times in one game? It just didn't make any sense. So for my final take on Terrion, I'm going to give him a C- because of the penalties. I'm going to give him an A for effort. I think the dude is, I think he's putting everything he has into it. I really do. And I think his confidence is there. He's not broken by any means. And the fact that he's sticking with some of the best receivers, and that's the other thing. He's gone up against some of the better receivers in the NFL. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Come on. That is an incredible, Marvin Harrison Jr. That is an incredible start to a season. So not only has he gone up against some of the best in the NFL, he's going up against some that will be the best in the NFL and some that have been doing it, at such an elite level like Evans for 10 seasons. So got to give him a little bit of a break there. So I would give him an E on the penalties. I give him a C- because of the penalties, but A for effort. I got him comfortably at a C right now. I think he does a lot of things well, but if I were to go through and grade every little thing, I think it would probably come out to be a C. I think that's where I would leave it. Ennis Rakestraw would be the next guy. He just hasn't had enough playing time. So I don't think you can really warrant a grade here on Ennis Rakestraw. But what I will say is when he came in, what was that? Was that week 1 or week 2? It must have been week 1 because he was out week 2 and week 3. Yeah. Week 1, he came in for a few plays when Terrion Arnold went out. I believe he had a little bump and a bruise somewhere. And immediately, he just latched on and drove that guy out of bounds. And I thought it was such a good heady play. I think Ennis is going to be the true menace on this team when he gets his shot. I like his physicality. He's another guy that does well in man coverage, but I also feel that he can play better zone than Terrion Arnold can right now, at least from what I've seen through practices, preseason. I think that Ennis has a better grasp on zone. The Lions as a whole are really struggling in zone, like really bad. For whatever reason, their zone coverage is kind of falling apart. And that's going to be another thing that we talk about on the defensive side here in hour 2 is why are the Lions letting up so much yards? Why is that happening? And why are, our edge rushers, our pass rushers, defensive linemen, whatever, why are they not getting as many sacks as you would expect or that maybe you want? I shouldn't say expect, but you want. You have to look at the defense. You have to understand what they're doing. If you don't understand what the Lions are doing, your takes are going to be garbage, and that's what they are. Because if you don't get it, it's kind of hard to talk about it. If you are in a prevent defense, bend but don't break, you're up by, 17 points or whatever it was on the Seahawks, and you're just trying to keep everything in front, you are giving up 10 yards every play, 9 yards every play, 8 yards every play. Of course, a team is going to take advantage of what you're giving them. So that's why so many yards get racked up against you. We could go in and break down, I'm sure, the Seahawks last half of the game. I would just, without even looking, I would say that their second half, they probably had more yards in the second half than they did in the first half, because the Lions are just trying to get through the game with allowing them to chew up the clock and try to keep everything in front. But Ennis Rakestraw, I really can't give the guy a grade. But from what I've seen out of him, I mean, he would get a B- from me. He would have a better grade because he doesn't have a crap load of penalties right now. What would you do?
Yeah. I don't know.
Incomplete, Motown Mitch says.
Yeah, you'd have to give him an incomplete because we really can't grade what we've seen from him so far. He only played, let's see, 1 coverage snap in the last game and 3 in the first game. So for 4 snaps, we're supposed to give him a grade?
Yeah, it's tough, man. That's tough.
You can't, because all the other things he's done have been kick return and punt coverage, and that's another 8, 13, 16, 19. He's had 19 special teams plays, and
well, that's where he's living right now. He's living in the special teams world,
which is fine.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's what's expected of him, right? I mean, you got Carlton Davis and Amik Robertson in front of you, along with Terrion Arnold. That's where he's going to live, and he's played well when he's been in the game. I mean, I haven't seen any blown coverage. I haven't seen, him lose, leverage in special teams. I think he's playing fine. I think the upside for Rakestraw is right there with Terrion Arnold. I've even said this before when I've watched them kind of play side by side. Some might even think that Rakestraw could end up being a better corner. He's going to be one of those players I feel like doesn't get a big enough opportunity because of where he was drafted after Arnold. He's not going to get as big of a look. And I don't want anything to happen to Arnold, but let's just say he's out for a period of time. I think then we're going to see who the real Rakestraw is. And my version of Rakestraw is he's going to be obviously a 1-2 with Terrion Arnold in short order. Give it a season or two, and he's going to be right there. I wanted to compare it to McKinstry, right? Both of these guys to McKinstry. Can't do anything with Rakestraw, in comparison, but McKinstry's had a great start to his season. He's got 4 total tackles. He's got 2 stops, 2 missed tackles, no interceptions yet, which Terrion Arnold doesn't either. His passer rating allowed is a 91.7. He's averaging 7.3 yards per reception. He's been in on 25 run defense snaps and 67 coverage snaps. His overall grade right now is a 75 flat. And let me pull up Terrion Arnold real quick. Terrion obviously is not having a great start to a season because of all the penalties, and I can only imagine that PFF is slamming Terrion right now because of the penalties. If you were to remove the penalties, I would say that he's right there, kind of very similar grade, maybe even better. But he has 13 total tackles, only 1 missed tackle, 5 stops. See, that's big for me. 5 stops is huge in the run game. And a 98.4 passer rating allowed. So just about 7 points behind McKinstry at this point. But he's allowing 11.1 yards per reception. Now, that looks like a big, gaudy number, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But I think I just explained why. When you are in bend but don't break, you are giving up all those yards, especially when they're in a 2nd and long or a 3rd and long. It's 3rd and 17. You're trying to give up 15 or less and hoping that they're not going to go for it on 4th and 2. So you have to look at what AG is doing. You have to understand why they're in that style of defense. It's not that I agree with it, because I certainly don't. Yes, I want them to play a little bit of bend but don't break. I don't want them to get burned and, get a first down or go up top and get a touchdown on somebody. But at the same time, I feel like we're giving up too much. I think that AG is allowing too much to happen We're winning the game, and that's all that matters. And that's why I've always said stats be damned. They're fun to watch, right? They're great to have great stats. But at the same time, if you don't watch the games intently, if you don't review the games intently, and you don't understand what AG is trying to do, or at least a very good educated guess of what he's trying to do, which is, I guess, where I would say I'm at, because I don't know. I'm not in the room with him. It tells a different story, a much different story. So that 11.1 yards per reception, I think it's tricking you out a little bit because, the bend but don't break is giving up too much. The difference here is Terrion Arnold's also been in 187 coverage snaps and 70 run defense snaps. So McKinstry's played about a third of the amount of snaps that Terrion has played. All right, next rookie. Who do you want to go to here? Sione Vaki?
Sure.
Quick, let me shout back to the chat here. Jay-Z said he also had a blown zone coverage that gave up a 70-yard TD to Mike Evans. If I remember correctly, that throws his yards per reception off. Yeah, it would. I don't know that he got credited for that. I really don't. I don't remember, Jay-Z, if he got credited for that one. Quite honestly, I feel like that was Carlton Davis in the Tampa game. I'll look up at that. Why don't you start with Sione Vaki, if you don't mind? I'll look up.
So Sione Vaki, he has had in the first game 2 plays at running back. The next game, 3 plays at running back. The next game, 1 play at running back. And then he's been out wide for 1 play in the second game. In the fourth game, he had 0 plays at wide receiver or running back. It's all been kick, punt, coverage, and returns. So he's out there for all the special teams plays. That's where he's living right now. He is special teamer ace extraordinaire, and that is where he was drafted for, and that's what he's doing. He had the one not a touchdown, but the one first down on a 4th down punt, fake punt for a throw from Jack Fox that went for, I think, 16 or 17 yards. And
17, yeah.
Yeah, and he almost broke it, man. Oh, God, he was so close to just being gone. And the guy got him by the shoestrings. And that was an incredible play. That was his only real big play so far this year, other than having some tackles and stuff on special teams. So for right now, I'll give him an A for what he's doing. All the special team stuff, I'll give him an A for that so far.
Yeah. So I guess to answer back to the question there that Jay-Z had posted, or the statement that Jay-Z posted, it would appear that Carlton Davis was not credited with that because he only gave up 57 yards in that game. Be interesting to see who they actually credited that with. Let me look at Terrion Arnold real quick. In the Tampa Bay game, yeah, they didn't credit Arnold with it either because he only gave up 31 yards that game. So if it wasn't Arnold, it wasn't Davis, maybe it was Robertson. It could have also been a linebacker, because if I remember correctly, that was wasn't that a drag over the middle?
Probably Anzalone.
I can't remember if that was Anzalone. Did he play in week 2?
Mm-hmm.
He was out week 3. That's right. He got the concussion in week 2.
Yeah.
It wasn't Robertson either, because he only gave up 19 yards a yak, and that's it for that game.
Jack Campbell.
It could have been, but I guess it wasn't one of our DBs. Maybe it was Kirby. I think I'm just gonna have to keep going down the line.
I'm thinking it was Jack Campbell.
Let's keep going. I mean, Kirby, loving really what Kirby's doing right now, man. Great work.
That dude playing like Pro Bowl style.
He's gonna have to get a bag to keep him around.
Yeah.
It wasn't Kirby. All right, I'm going to give up on it because I'm not going to waste all this time looking it up. But it wasn't any of those four for right now. So all we have left is Brian Branch or Ennis the Menace, which I doubt he was in. So it's a mystery now. There we go. It's a mystery.
So
it's a mystery.
Imagine that you're a rookie and your very first play that you get to do anything on as a rookie is a fake punt.
It's crazy.
And you get to make the catch for 17 yards.
What I love the confidence here that Dan Campbell has in Sione Vaki. And that's something I wish I had a little blowhorn or, a toot my own horn, dialed up here on the pads, because I called Sione Vaki to this team and I called five of the, draft picks last season. There's not many people that get that kind of stuff right. And the only reason why I'm telling you that stuff is because when I do the research, and by the way, 100% of what I do is all research. It's all original. If I'm not doing something original, I tell you. If I'm reading an article, I tell you. Otherwise, I mean, you can see all the work that I do. I mean, I've got documents that are hundreds of pages long that follow every show that I've ever done. And it's a lot of work. It's a ton of work. And I love what I do. I wish I could streamline it somehow. I wish I could just copy and paste from everybody else, because they do a lot of good work. And some people we do talk about what they put together, because if they already put the work in, there's no sense in me wasting my time, as long as their work is correct, and fact check it. But to get on Sione Vaki here, I expected him to have a little bit more opportunity. What was his snaps right now in special teams?
So special teams, he's got quite a few. So like the first game he had 16, the second game he had 18, the third game he had 14, and then the last game he had 19.
So that's probably 100% of special team snaps.
Yeah, he's playing them all.
I love what he brings to the table. I mean, he is someone that can play both sides of the ball. I mean, clearly on special teams, he's a great tackler. He's got the safety background, so he knows how to play defense. He's not afraid to mix it up. He's slated, according to this article by Vito, that he's slated as number 4 on the depth chart for a running back. I mean, I guess I couldn't disagree with that, because Craig Reynolds, he's got more experience than Sione Vaki does right now. But I think that Sione Vaki is going to be a much better option come next year than Craig Reynolds. I don't see where keeping Craig around makes sense, unless they can keep him around for, pretty inexpensive contract. But Sione Vaki is going to bring a lot more to the table. I think you gave him a B. I would probably have to give him a B as well. It's hard not to want to give him an A, because everything he's done at such a high level so far. It's hard to penalize the guy. I think the only reason why I'd penalize him and not getting an A is just the time on the task, right? Just not enough time in the game to make a mistake, and to show us, a different side of him. So far, I'd give him a solid B. He's doing great.
Yeah, I give him an A just because the one time his number was called, he showed up.
Fonzie, I appreciate that statement, man. Says that's why I say the Lions should hire you to scout for them. Look, I don't know how I get all this stuff right, other than I will tell you this. I put the time in, right? I put a lot of time in. Megan could tell you how much time I put in. I'm in this studio 16 hours a day when I'm not doing, other things. I do everything right here. For everything that I do in life, I'm always doing something. If I had the resources, right? Give me a company car. Give me an Amex card. Give me $250,000 a year to fly around the country and stay in hotels. You better believe I would do it for free. You just cover my expenses and I would do it for free, 1,000%, because I still need to get a lot of experience too. There's a lot that I need to learn, and that's why I'm taking these classes for scouting, because there's a ton. When I can talk as fluid as all 22 does, then I know I've arrived. Giovanni Manu, incomplete, right? We can't give him a grade. He's got a long way to go. Move on to Mekhi Wingo. So Mekhi Wingo has been. Go ahead.
I'm going to give Manu an A.
Okay.
Here's why. Because the dude is super cool. He took 5 minutes out of his day and he talked to me for a couple minutes at the Monday Night Football game before the game started. So I'm going to give him an A just for talking to me.
All right, so he gets the fan award. He gets the the community award for being a good dude. I expect nothing less from Giovanni Manu.
Dude, he was so nice.
Yeah.
Like you can tell he's just a very small town kid, and this is all like he's just bright lights, big eyes, looking everywhere, soaking it all in.
I love it. But I can only give him an incomplete based on his football play, right? I expect to see huge growth out of him next year. There might be more opportunity for him to play next year, but we also have to remember that Taylor Decker's locked up, Penei Sewell's locked up. Frank Ragnow still has some time. They're going to try to keep that nucleus together as much as possible. Could he slide into guard next year? That could be an interesting option for Manu. I know that, they really want to develop him at tackle. But my question is, if we don't keep Zeitler next year, maybe you kick Graham Glasgow back to right guard and you slide Manu in next to Decker. That would be huge, man. Do you want to talk about road grade city? They'd be developing new paths every game for this run game. Love it. Absolutely love it. Mekhi Wingo. According to this article, the first of Detroit's 2 6th-round picks, has contributed both on defense and special teams up to this point. In fact, the LSU product has racked up 73 total defensive snaps and 16 on special teams. Now, he only has 3 tackles, all of which came in week 3 against the Cardinals. He has a quarterback hit, which came in the season opener versus the Rams, and 4 total pressures. With the likes of Aleem McNeil, DJ Reader, and Levi Onwuzurike ahead of him on the depth chart, there's not a great likelihood that he logs a ton of reps this season. I agree. But what we have seen out of Mekhi Wingo so far, I've been pleasantly surprised with. I don't feel like he's a liability when he's in the game. I feel that he offers a ton of versatility when he's in the game. I don't know why I'm not signed in here. Hold on. Why am I not signed in? Trying to pull up his PFF stats here. But just like they said, 3 tackles, 1 stop, 4 hurries, which are pressures, right? 19 run defense snaps and 55 pass rush snaps. He has a 63.1 overall grade, and for a 6th-round pick to be logging snaps already in a defense that is very crowded, I think is incredible. I think it's awesome that Mekhi Wingo's already getting some time in a defense, really where there's just not a whole lot of room. There really isn't. Our defensive line is pretty deep, and sky's the limit for this kid. I think he's going to be, an inside-outside guy next year, with Josh Paschal and others, that's going to start to blow up, year by year. He's going to get better and better and better. I expect, him to be that year 3 product that Brad Holmes always talks about that is just going to jump off the page in year 3. So Mekhi, I've got to give him probably a B again for, his effort, the fact that he's not a liability. He's not letting up a bunch of yardage, when he's in the game. He's playing fairly disciplined, and he's already a very solid leader on this team. He comes in being a leader, and his confidence, from what we've seen and what we've read, has been very infectious into this locker room. Just a good overall dude. So I got to give him a B because there's really nothing bad. His grade could be better, but you're talking such a low sample size. So it's kind of hard to really figure out who he is right now, but I can't give him a C. I can't say that he's just average. He's not jumping off the page, getting sacks, but that's not what you expect all the time from a defensive lineman. Some of these guys are not pass rushers. They are defensive linemen that are there to stop the run. And when you look at our run defense grade, he's doing just fine. So where do you have Wingo?
Yeah, I'd say about the same, a B. Nothing that really jumps off the page and nothing that's really bad. I haven't seen him on a position. I haven't seen him getting pancaked on every play. The plays that I've watched, that I've specifically paid attention to him in there, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing and getting in on the tackle and stopping the run.
So, John Doe, pay attention to hour 2 because I'm going to put you down in your seat, buddy. I'm going to tell you exactly why you're wrong. I would love for you to call in and tell us exactly why it doesn't work. I want to hear it. I want you to tell me definitively what our assignments are, what the scheme is, what they're doing on every play, and why you're saying that Aiden Hutchinson is the only one having success, which is not true, by the way. He's having gaudy stat numbers, but that also doesn't mean that it's success. It's just gaudy stat numbers. You have to understand what's going on with the defense overall. I'm not trying to call you out individually, but I think you're trying to call me out individually. So pay attention. Pay attention. And stats do lie if you don't watch and utilize the eye test. So stats are part of the equation. They're not the whole equation. Because if you just look at stats and you never watch the game, you wouldn't understand what happened. You'd have no clue what happened. You're just going to look at the stats and say, oh, Hutch didn't get any sacks this week. Must have been a terrible game. Or, no, they were up by, 20 points on the Seahawks. They contained the running game. They contained Geno Smith, and then they went to bend but don't break. And that's where they're not going to get a bunch of sacks because they're supposed to contain. So you've got to pay attention to what's actually happening on the defense. And the presence on the left defensive end position, that would be Aiden's spot. So it would be right defensive end that we would be missing. And Peter Van Larhoven, I would say again, you're only seeing part of the equation here. There's a reason why this defense is ranked as one of the best defenses in the league right now. So what are they doing wrong? Someone tell me, what are they doing wrong if they have the best defense they've ever had? Doesn't make a bit of sense to me to say that they're missing anything, because they're not. Here, you guys wanted Matthew Judon, right? How many of you wanted Matthew Judon to join this team? I'm curious. Yep. So Geno threw for 397. What does that have to do with the defensive line? Aiden had 15 pressures in that game. Had plenty of pressure. What does that have to do with the defensive line? Juden wasn't a force last night. If stats mean everything, Peter, which is what you guys just told me, he was not a force last night. He had 0 sacks, 2 combined tackles. So on the season, he has 1.5 sacks, 18 combined tackles. Does that sound like an edge rusher that is breaking the game apart? No, it doesn't. So adding players like this doesn't mean that they're going to help your team win. But if you just base it off the stats, he's having a terrible season. If you base it on the eye test, you might see something different. I'll leave it at that until we get into hour 2. All right, so next up, let's talk about the next rookie, which I just closed that sheet. Christian Mahogany, incomplete. Can't talk about him really. He hasn't done anything. Be nice to see him finally, make his way back to this team this year. Pretty sure he's still NFI'd. It's gonna be a minute, I think, before we even see him come back. According to this article, Mahogany, the final pick of Detroit's 2024 draft class, missed all of training camp with mono, was unable to play in the season's first 4 games due to being placed on the team's NFI list. According to the Lions head coach, Dan Campbell, Mahogany's return to play clock should be activated following the team's Week 5 bye. That's interesting. So they're going to get a good look at him probably through the bye week and figure out if this is an opportunity for them to start the 21-day window. He'll have 3 weeks to make it back, and that would provide some good depth for the Lions. We just haven't seen anything. So I don't know enough about Mahogany and where he's at until we get to see something. It would have been nice to see him during training camp, but it just didn't happen. Earlier when I mentioned that Sauce Gardner had some information or some advice, if you will, for Terrion Arnold, here was the quote. It was, I think Arnold lines up too low in his press man stance. If he raises up a little bit, he's good money. I don't know what good money means, but maybe he's just good. Like he'll play better. He'll be in better position. Not real sure. But obviously Sauce Gardner's been one of the best to do it. So let me throw that at you. If we go by the stats don't lie comment, okay? Sauce Gardner has how many interceptions?
0.
But he's the best corner in the league. How does that make sense?
Aiden Hutchinson has more interceptions than he does.
Right. So again, does that mean that Aiden's a better corner than Sauce because he has more interceptions?
Yep.
I guess so. Doesn't make any sense. You can't live. Like, I'm a stat nerd. I love stats. I think they speak volumes to certain categories of and style of play. But at the same time, you have to watch the game. And I would implore you to watch the tape. Go through a tape review. We'll be doing another one tomorrow. If you are a member, I'll open it up to everybody again. Go through the tape review and look at what's actually happening in the game. All right, what's next on the roster here? Lions overall recap. So let's get into the Lions overall. Let's pull up their grades here. If you go to PFF, Eric, you go to team reports.
Yep.
And we'll start with offense. You can whittle it down by offense and then go to grades and then tap offense. And that way you get the top offensive numbers on top. And then you can organize it if you really wanted to by position. But we'll start at the top. Your number one graded offensive player right now is David Montgomery. He has an 85.3. Yes, he is higher than Penei Sewell, which is crazy to me. But Penei Sewell's right behind him with an 84.7. In the pass game, he's an 81.7. Pass block, he's a 74.7. In the run game, he's an 80.6. In the run block, I don't even know why he's getting a run blocking grade. He's a 60. No penalties on the season so far. He has 116 snaps on the season, 42 pass, 10 pass block, 62 run, two run block. So I guess that's why he's getting a run block grade. Overall, one of the best running backs in the league right now. I'm going to pull PFF open for all running backs. What are you giving David Montgomery on the season so far for a grade, or I guess what is your position on David Montgomery so far through 4 games?
Demo has gotten the scepter not once, but twice now for angry run by Kyle Brandt of Good Morning Football. And I'm telling you what, Demo is a man on a mission. He's a beast. A+, 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 A+.
I would certainly agree with all of that. You know, I didn't know Jahmyr Gibbs was only 5'9". I thought he was taller than that. And that just stuck out to me when I opened up PFF. So right now, David Montgomery is rated as the 4th best overall running back in the league. He is behind Kenneth Walker, a 90.2, Derrick Henry, an 89.1, Braylon Allen, 87.5, and then you have David Montgomery, 85.3. I don't understand why he would be rated that far behind. I really don't. And why are the stats not in this? Where's the stats? NFL. If we look at stat leaders so far through the season, through 4 games, oh, come on. Where's it at? Offense. Rushing. That's not what I'm looking for. All right, here we go. So far through 4 games, Derrick Henry has 480 yards on 80 attempts. He's averaging 6 yards a rush, which is absolutely insanity. Montgomery is actually rated 15th, with Jahmyr Gibbs coming in at 13th. Jahmyr Gibbs has 285 yards on the season. David Montgomery, 271, averaging 4.3, and Jahmyr Gibbs averaging 5.3. I mean, those are incredible numbers. Averaging, over 4 yards a carry is perfect. Averaging over 5 yards a carry is astronomical. And to have two of these backs so closely, or so close in what they're averaging, I think is great. I don't think that there's another 1-2 punch in the league that it comes anywhere close. Now, if these guys were, the bell cow for the team and they got the majority of the snaps, they didn't split, the amount of snaps, almost 50-50, because Jahmyr Gibbs has 54 and Demo has 63. I mean, that's almost a 50-50 split, right? I mean, it's maybe 55-45 or whatever the case may be. David Montgomery is obviously doing things we expected him to do this year. And what he showed us in the overtime, win versus LA was what we needed to see. And that is that he is a man on a mission, like you said. So I give him an A+ too. Absolutely. If we stick with running backs, let's talk about Jahmyr Gibbs. So if David Montgomery is ranked 4th in the league right now for grade, he is ranked 15th in the league overall for stats. Your Jahmyr Gibbs is ranked 17th overall right now on PFF per grade, 75.6. He's getting a terrible pass blocking grade. It is something that he obviously needs to work on. There's been a few plays that I've noticed with Jahmyr Gibbs. He's been a liability where he's completely missed a block or shied away from a block for whatever reason. That part of his game has to pick up. We cannot leave Jared Goff wide open to a sack or a big hit, which has happened a couple of times with Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield. So that is the biggest, error in his game right now is pass block protection. But 17th in the league, PFF, and he is 13th in the league via stats. Where would you give Jahmyr Gibbs a grade so far this season? If you're giving David Montgomery an A+, where does Jahmyr Gibbs slide in?
I'd give him somewhere between a B and a B+. I think that he's, when he gets the ball, he's electric. He's scoring touchdowns. He had 2 touchdowns the other night. Demo only had 1. And he's scoring touchdowns basically every game. And man, what a 1-2 punch these guys are. It's hard to fault him. It's hard not to give him an A. But he's got to get that pass blocking up. Other than that, I'd say between a B and a B+.
I could agree with that. I mean, I think that Jahmyr Gibbs, being the electrician that he is, he comes up big at big times, right? I mean, he's a half a yard away from breaking just about every runoff for, a long TD. And Demo, I mean, he can do the same, right? He has some big runs this year too. His long of the year is 21, and Jahmyr Gibbs' long of the year is 24. I mean, so they're very close in that nature, right? When you look at the best to do it right now, Derrick Henry's got an 87-yard TD this year, or 87-yard run. I don't know if it was a TD.
It was.
That's absolutely incredible. I don't even know which team it came against, but it's a cheat code there in Baltimore, man. You've got Lamar and Derrick. We knew that this was going to happen with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson being on the same team, that it's going to be very hard to defend in the RPO game there, if they're going to pull it back. I mean, Lamar Jackson is the 9th rated runner or a running back in the league right now, 9th rated with 308 yards. So I guess if you were to compare a 1-2 punch, and if you called Lamar Jackson a running back, yeah, it's Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, and then I feel like it's David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, but that's just not the case because Lamar's a quarterback. But I think I would slide Jahmyr Gibbs in at a B+ for right now. Maybe a B. I guess I'm with you. I want to see his pass block grade come up and in a hurry. I don't want to see Jared Goff wide open to a big hit like that.
And if you're looking at just the numbers, Both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs are both on pace for 1,000 yards.
Yeah, which last year Jahmyr Gibbs just barely missed it.
Yeah, but he was really lacking. If you remember, in the first 4 or 5 games of the year, it wasn't clicking for him yet.
No, it wasn't clicking, and then I think he missed.
Yeah, he missed a couple games.
Did he miss 2 or 1?
2.
Did he miss 2 games last year?
Yeah.
All right, so Jahmyr Gibbs stats so far. 54 attempts, 285 yards, 5.3 average, long of 24. 3 bigs, 3 TDs, 71.3 yards a game. And Demo, 67.8 yards a game. So combined, these guys are averaging, and I think that's the number you have to look at, right? So Derrick Henry, he's averaging a flat 120 a game. And if you look at the combination of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, they're averaging almost 140 yards a game, 139.1 yards per game combined between the two. What is FD? Rushing touchdowns? Rushing first downs. So Jahmyr Gibbs has 15 rushing first downs. David Montgomery has 18 rushing first downs. And again, if you combine them, they have the most first downs via run in the league. It's kind of hard, to look at them as a combined running duo or not look at them as a combined running duo because the Lions are so balanced between what they're doing by feeding them both. It seems like they start with Demo and then they'll go to Jahmyr in the second and third, and then they go back to Demo. And then they'll flip-flop it a little bit. Sometimes they'll start with Jahmyr, then they'll go back to Demo, throughout the game. It's almost like they have a defined identity of where they want these guys to play and trying to save their legs for certain portions of the game. I can't go any further without shouting out the third quarter, against
Finally.
Yeah, against the Seahawks. I mean, this is the biggest third quarter we've seen yet for the Lions. And that's exactly what my call was last week in the pregame show, was this was going to be our best opportunity to finally do something in the third quarter. Now, the stats were against us. What the Seahawks, have done on paper and what they have done throughout this season, they didn't allow a whole lot in the third quarter compared to other teams. So the fact that the Lions were able to put it together, and again, they put it on the backs of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery to help get this, Lions team off and running in the right direction. And then obviously with Ben Johnson mixing it up the way that he did and utilizing his guys in the fashion that he did is I think what gave, the Lions a great opportunity in the third quarter to finally do something. But you're not going to get that done without, a premier running back. You need somebody that can do all the hard work, right, between the tackles. And both of them can do it. Both can run through the tackles. And it was nice to see for once. So big shout out to third quarter for the Detroit Lions. All right, so let's talk about receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about receivers.
Now you have Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and JMO both also on pace for 1,000.
It's hard to believe that Amon-Ra wouldn't get 1,000, but he's had a little bit of a different start to his season this year.
But
so
with JMO, I mean, he's leading the team in reception yards. He's the only receiver in the NFL with 350-plus yard
catches.
Yeah, in the whole entire NFL.
What's odd is they have Jamison Williams as the 33rd receiver right now, grade-wise, at a 69.7. And a lot of this is his run blocking grade is pretty low. So his run block grade at 49.2 should be a lot better. And I mean, I can't say that when you look at, okay, let me put it this way. There's plenty of receiver.
It's run blocking on Monday night.
Do what?
He got a game ball for his blocking on Monday night.
Yeah, so we'd have to look at that game independently, but overall, his run blocking is terrible. He's ranked. Oh goodness, where is it? Where is he? He's not even in the first 50. Jameson Williams is ranked. Well, there's not even a number by it because they didn't whittle it down. But he's somewhere in the 70s, I think.
Oh, wow.
Somewhere in the 70s as far as run blocking. Now, at a 49.2, at the top of the list is Drake London with a 79.3. Nelson Aguilar with a 75.2. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the third best run blocking wide receiver in the league right now with a 72.9. So clearly there's some work to do here. Not to say that he didn't have a good game, against the Seahawks for his run blocking grade. Probably was better. We can take a look here. Or the fact that he got a game ball for it. I mean, that's got to say something.
I don't know if it was for run blocking or pass blocking, but he got a game ball for blocking, basically.
Let's take a look.
But he only had 2 catches in the game.
Yeah, but that one was a giant catch.
70-yard touchdown.
Yeah, that was a giant catch. So overall, let's talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown first. I'll come back to JMO. So Amon-Ra St. Brown right now is the 15th ranked wide receiver in the league at 76.0 for his offensive overall grade. 60.5 in as a pass grade. 60.5. It's the lowest I've seen for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't understand why a lot of players don't have this same stat. Let me pull up the key. Where's the key? Did they leave the key out? They did. Interesting. Players that are ahead of him: Deebo Samuel, Marvin Harrison Jr., Tutu Atwell, Jaden Reed, Ladd McConkey, Malik Neighbors. It's a lot of rookies. Devonta Smith, Drake London, Rashee Rice, Justin Jefferson, Chris Godwin, Juwan Jennings, Chris Olave, and Nico Collins is number 1 in the league right now with a 91.2. There's a lot of work that needs to be done here, but I would say that the first 3 weeks of the season, or the first 2 weeks of the season, I mean, we had some rough moments there, especially in week 2. Again, if you just look at the stats and you look at 7 times in the red zone, you only get in 1. Those stats are not good. That's part of the reason why I assumed that Amon-Ra St. Brown's score is just a little bit less, because he's hasn't been targeted as much as I feel he would have been had the Lions been passing the ball at a more efficient rate. Receiving snaps, right now he's got 134. Total offensive snaps, 250. Which would put him, top 10 as far as snaps so far. He's definitely a leader in the league, as far as snaps. But where would you give Amon-Ra St. Brown's grade? I have a hard time putting him at an A.
No, I'd say B+.
No, I think some of that's driven because of the way that the offense has been running, right? Yeah. I don't think it's a total indictment here on.
No, and it's not all his fault. Listen, Goff was off. The first 2-3 games of the season, Goff was off. He just, until that third game where he went 14 of 14, and then last game where he went 18 of 18, until that, he was putting balls in the dirt right in front of Amon-Ra St. Brown, and something was off. Just something wasn't clicking. I don't know if it was St. Brown. I don't know if it was Goff. I don't know if it was the offensive line. I don't know if it was pass blocking. I don't know what it was, but something just was not right.
All right, so not to cause riff between us, but I've got to keep it 100, just like I would for anybody in the chat or anybody that I would talk to about this. Yes and no, it would be my response to your answer. Like, yes, it's partly true. No, it's partly not. And here's what I would explain as to what I've seen through the tape. One, I feel like Ben Johnson's offensive play calls were kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
You get off and running, you go into a good direction, and then you hit the brakes, and you do something totally different that isn't working, but then you stick to it. You stick to something that's not working. Why wouldn't you go back to what was working? Why would you get off of what was working in the first place? That's number one. So I think that caused some issues with Goff in the way that, when you start to get into a rhythm, why would you mess it up? If you get Goff into a rhythm, you want to leave him there. You want to leave him there until the defense is finally shutting you down and you can't do anything. So if you get Goff off of his rhythm, it's going to be hard for him to get it back, especially when the defense starts to take the momentum from you. I would say that was one issue. Second issue, balls in the dirt. Yeah, I would say there's probably only 2 balls that Goff has thrown this entire season that you could definitively say were just god-awful, terrible throws. I feel like, Goff, I don't feel, I know, based on the stats, Goff had a ton of pressure. He has faced more pressure this season than any other season so far within the first 4 weeks. And it's the amount of pressure and how quickly the pressure was coming at Goff. So he had to get rid of the ball. And the one thing that Goff didn't do that he probably should have done and has done in seasons past is just eat it. Dude, just go down. Instead of throwing this awkward duck ball, just go down, right? And that wasn't happening. So again, not to say that you're wrong or whatever, but the balls in the dirt comment, I've seen that from so many people where they're saying that Goff is just throwing the ball in the dirt because he didn't have an arm, or, he couldn't throw the ball far enough, or, was just that bad of a passer. No, some of that stuff is intentional. Like some of it's intentional. You're trying to get the ball out and at a receiver so you don't get intentional grounding.
There's nothing you can do when the dude's in your face.
Right.
That's what I mean. Something was off. It was the whole offense. It wasn't just him. It wasn't his arm, like he's throwing errant passes.
He threw a couple,
Yeah,
it's expected though.
He did have 2 or 3 that were just, I don't know. Maybe he had Vaseline on his fingers that day or something.
I don't know. Maybe the ball wasn't inflated enough, but
yeah.
The thing that I will say is this though. What we saw out of Goff in week 4, that is who Goff is. When he is on rhythm and the offense is being efficient and Ben Johnson is calling the right plays at the right time and mixing it up, that is who Goff is. Now, he's not going to throw perfect games every week. But if you look at what he's been able to do throughout his career, he has been one of the most accurate passers in the league. Hands down. That's where the stats don't lie. He's throwing at his best completion percentage of the season right now. So I would agree too that something was off. And I think it was a culmination of, Goff was a little bit slow to start this year. Ben Johnson was a little bit slow to start this year. His scheme was a little bit vanilla at times. They weren't trying to show too much. I felt like they withheld a little bit to get to that Seahawks game. They weren't gonna show too much of their playbook. They clearly had games circled where they're like, okay, week 4, we got to dial it up, right? Obviously, week 1, week 2 of the bigger contests, they're going to have to do what they can to win the game. But they came in with a defined identity, of wanting to run the ball. In week 4, they still wanted to run the ball, but they also passed the ball much differently than they did throughout the first 3 games of the season. Moving forward, I don't feel like the Lions are going to be, into a funk, like they were. I think that they finally figured out some things in week 4. Very, very, to your point, Peter, very smart quarterback. Some high throws, right? They lead to interceptions. Yep, I agree with that. But sometimes you have to look at what happened on the play. So that one interception on the Jameson Williams non-call, right? I mean, he was legit run into, and it was contact downfield. It should have been called. That was not a Goff interception. It was the same thing that happened to Laporta last year. Just the refs didn't call it. I mean, we saw some things in every single game that these refs are just staring at the penalty and they're not even reaching for a flag. That's the stuff that's got to stop. Even with Hutch, it's got to stop. So receiver grades. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'll give him a B plus.
Mm-hmm.
JMO, it's probably going to blow your mind. I don't care about his grade. I don't care about his grade at all.
Nope.
JMO's getting an A- from me. And again, it's not a competition between him and Amon-Ra. But for where he was last year to where he is today, 2 totally different players. He's not dropping balls. He's in the right position. He's running clean routes. He's not being selfish. He's just putting in the work. Jameson Williams is a different ball player today than he was when he started. And that's what you wanted to see. And even though I've been critical, constructive criticism on JMO, I expected this to happen at some point. If he was who we expected him to be, this is where we expected to see JMO at some point. It still has to stay consistent, but you may not see consistency in the numbers because of the way that this offense operates. And I keep saying that. Same thing for the defense. You're not going to see consistency in numbers because of the way the defense operates. This team is not about individual accolades in stats. It is about a team to win the game. And whatever they have to do to win the game is what they're going to do. And the sooner Lions fans understand that, the sooner we can put to bed these, indictments or quotes on players that, well, he didn't have a good game, we need a new defensive end, or we need another wide receiver, or this, that, and the other thing. Look, every game's going to be different. And we've seen that schematically they're different. Of course, you're going up against a different opponent, but they're going to do what they need to do to win the game first. They don't care if Hutch is sitting at 7 sacks in a game and he needs one more sack to break a record. They don't care. It's not that they're not going to try, but I think that what should stick out to you is Dan Campbell didn't even know Jared Goff was 18 for 18. So doesn't that make you now understand that they don't care about stats? They don't. They care about winning the game. So I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense, Eric?
Yep. So 2 things. Number 1, you're trying to get JMO to unblock you. I hear you.
Oh no, I'm being for real here. I'm being for real.
Right.
JMO's doing an excellent job.
And number 2, I don't care what you say, you're wrong. JMO is going to keep these numbers up because look what he did with 2 catches in the game on Monday Night Football. 2 catches.
Are you talking about yards?
But still, he got a touchdown and a whole bunch of yards with 2 catches. That's all he needed to put up more stats than Amon-Ra St. Brown, other than catches. He put up just as many or more yards than Amon-Ra with just 2 catches versus a whole bunch of catches. He is going to keep this going. Doesn't matter if he gets 5 catches, 2 catches, 1 catch. He's going to keep it going. You watch.
So I have no doubt in the yardage ability. No doubt. The doubt is the targets. So that's where you're not going to have the same amount of numbers from week to week. It's based on targets right now. So Jameson Williams through 4 weeks has 25 targets on the season, which is the most he's ever had, right? And Amon-Ra St. Brown is 38. Wish I could break this down by team. Hold on here. I don't think it's going to let me. It'd be nice to know where the target share is now that Tim Patrick is in. I think he's only had 4 or 5 targets maybe so far. But the point that I'm trying to make here is the numbers may not stay the same because of the target share.
Yeah. And there's another guy, Tim Patrick. Man, what a pickup he is going to end up being better than what Josh Reynolds was for the Detroit Lions. I have every feeling and inkling that Tim Patrick is going to end up being even better than Josh Reynolds was.
I could almost agree with that. I need to see more.
Yeah, we do.
Need to see more.
He's doing more with less right now. He had
1,000%.
2 catches, and he's catching everything. He isn't putting anything on the ground. It has been over 100 passes that Tim Patrick has had thrown his way, and he has not put a single ball on the ground. The guy catches everything. As long as you get it anywhere near him, he catches the ball.
Well, I mean, to back you up on that stat, he was 2 for 2 in the last game. He was 1 for 1 in week 3, and he was 2 for 4 in week 2. But I have a feeling week 2 was not all his fault. Like, I don't think the ball was on target. He has 0 drops. 0 drops.
That's what I mean. Yeah. He's got 0 drops in, like, I can't remember, it was 160, 150, something like that. It was a really long stat.
Well, you know what? Another good stat, and we'll talk about this later too, is the Lions have not let up a 100-yard running back or rusher since week 16 of 2022.
Yeah, since the Carolina game when they ran for 300 yards against us.
That's correct. I think that's telling of how our defense operates, right? I mean, when you look at it on the surface level here, they put a stake in the ground and they said never again, and that is also why some stats won't line up for defensive players. When you are selling out against the run, you cannot sell out against the pass rush. You could do one or the other. You can either shut down the run or you can get after the quarterback. Pick your poison. It's just the way it works. Unless AG is going to start firing linebackers, it's just the way that it is. So overall here for the wide receiver group, where would you give them? Tim Patrick, I give him a B, for what he's been able to do. I have no doubt in my mind, just like you, that he is going to be an amazing tool in Jared Goff's tool belt for the rest of this season. He's only going to get better as long as he stays healthy. Khalif Raymond, he has not been injected into this offense enough so far through the season. I mean, I would give him a solid B for his work, for what he's done. In my opinion, I think you give the wide receiver room a B overall. They haven't done enough yet to earn an A, but you know what they have done enough of, and that is just enough to win. And I think that's what matters. If we continue to see Jared Goff grow into this season the way that he is right now, there's no reason in the world why we won't have the best overall wide receiver room by the end of the season. And that's a very tall task, but it can be done. I think that we would have a wide receiver room that is probably going to be in the top 10. We're going to have a running back room that is probably going to be in the top 5. We're going to have a quarterback that is going to be in the top 5. There's no reason why our offense won't finish in the top 5 again this year. And that's going to be enough to get us into the conversation of making a Super Bowl run, especially when we start talking about what's next, which is the defense and where the defense is headed. I'm not going to go through every player on the offensive side of the ball. Jared Goff is going to get a B for me. He's done some great things. He's done some not so great things, but I think overall we've done enough to win. And I think that he earns, at least a B. Clearly gets an A+++ for the last game, but combining everything together, couple of bad throws, couple of bad decisions, just doing a few things that was not Jared Goff, making some mistakes here or there that was not Jared Goff. Off to your point, I believe in, some of that stuff, that there was just some things that weren't clicking early on. But now they seem to have gotten whatever it was corrected as of the last game. Can they now follow it up in Dallas is going to be the big question. So overall, I give the offense a B so far on the season, and I'll take your offensive grade, and let's move on to the defense.
I could agree with a B overall. Listen, it's not the offense's fault that we lost that game versus the Bucs. That was a snafu with a, they were trying to down the ball so they could get on and kick a field goal. That's coaching. That's whoever sent all those people on. Oh my God. You change that one play, the whole game is different. We win that game, we're 4-0, and then everybody's talking about us instead of talking about the Vikings being 4-0 and how we're the powerhouse and the Vikings better watch out, So to me, it's one little coaching snafu, and we are 4-0. It had nothing to do with our offense, nothing to do with our defense. That was total coaching snafu.
I agree.
Then you could have utilized Jake Bates, and we kick a couple easy field goals, and we walk away winning that game. And who cares if we went 7 out of 9 in the red zone, not scoring a touchdown. It doesn't matter because now we're getting that under control. Now we went 7 for 7 or 6 for 6 in the red zone in this last game.
Yeah. Was it 6 for 6 or 5 for 5?
6 for 6.
Was it really? I thought it was only 5 for 5.
5 for 5 because Jamos was a 70-yarder.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll take a quick break here and go to an ad from Sports Spider. Where's Sports Spider at?
Every day, thousands of people are discovering Uper Lights, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from uperlights.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for Uper Lights with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit uperlights.com for all your UV flashlight needs with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from uperlights.com.
All right, so now let's talk about this pass rush by committee. A little bit of a defense overview, why it's working. You guys, I'm sure, are going to tell us why you think it's not working. And I'm curious to hear what Eric has to say. Does he think it's working or doesn't he? And we're going to get into some stats, some analytics, look at last year, a little bit of this year, and where are your Detroit Lions in comparison? So defensive pass rush by committee. Eric, I mean, just without getting into anything, when you look at our defensive performances right now through 4 games, what would you say is working, or where do you see, where would you compare the Lions defense right now compared to last year's defense if they had finished today?
So I'm gonna look at a little something here, and this is Fox. Okay, Fox Sports.
Don't give that away just yet.
All right.
Just give me a take.
Well, all right. So just me watching, okay? Just me watching what I am seeing as a fan, not taking into analytics whatsoever. Okay. Just me watching the games, being at the games, watching it in person, not watching it on replay, watching it in person. I'm seeing ghosts. And what do I mean by that? Opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers are having their way with us. We are giving up tons of yards. We're stopping the run. Nobody can run on us. But we're giving up tons of yards, but we're giving up less points. So last year, we gave up a few more points than we're giving up this year. So for the first 3 games, we were 17 points. And then this last game, we gave up 27 points on our defense. We did not give up 29. We gave up 27. That 2 points came from a safety. So overall, I think through the first 4 games, if you went and compared last year's first 4 games versus this year's first 4 games, I think our defense is doing a little better. I can see progress. I can see where it's heading. And for sure, the cornerback play on paper may not look that much better, but I can see where it's going, and I can see that it's going to be better. I think the tackling is much better. I think that the penalties are worse this year. We're having a lot more penalties on our defense, especially in the secondary. And I think we have more sacks than we had last year through the first 4 games, more pressures. That's for sure. So the eyeball test as a fan, it worries me because you're seeing ghosts of last year. You're seeing this defense that's Swiss cheese for the opposing quarterback to throw all over the place and, like Geno, have 400 yards. But you know what we didn't do? We didn't lose to the Seahawks again. So there's one monkey off our back. There's one demon gone. And Next week is Dallas, and let's see what happens.
Okay, so let me try to unpack a little bit of that. You talked about points. So one of the biggest metrics or key indicators, if you will, KPI, key performance indicator, how well your defense is doing year over year. A large part of that analytical specimen would be points per game. And I've always stood on my soapbox and said, if you can keep offenses to 20 points or less, you're going to have a much better opportunity to win games. In 2022, there was about 1 point separation between what our offense was putting up, which was like 27 points a game, and our defense was letting up, which I think was somewhere around 25.7 or 26.2 points per game.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to win a lot of games that way. I think we finished, 9-8? And then in 2023, I want to say that we slimmed that number down a little bit. Might have been like 23.2 points per game, I think, was last year where we were. And in the very beginning of this season, I said, look, if we can get to 20 points flat or even 19.5, this would be a much better defense based on what we just did with interior defensive linemen and adding some better corners. The Lions currently right now are at 20.5 points per game. And last year they are at 23.2, 23.5, whatever it was. So we've already made up a field goal of points year over year through 4 weeks with, again, according to an ass load of penalties.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me how a defense gives up so many pass interference penalties, yet still has you in the game. Clearly something's working, because this defense last year gives up this many penalties. We haven't won a game yet. Guaranteed. We'd be 0-4. If this defense last year gave up this many penalties, we aren't winning anything. But why did they give up so many penalties this year versus last year? Two things. Number one, scheme change. We are playing more press man. You're going to have more penalties. Last year, they played a lot more zone with corners that couldn't play the position. So they were far away enough from the ball where they weren't creating penalties. Unless you got a holding call, after 5 yards or, incidental contact calls or whatever, contact after 5. That's about all we were going to get last year. Pass interference was few and far between, it seemed like. This year we have a lot more pass interference and defensive holding because we are more aggressive at the point of attack or off the jump, off the snap. They're a little bit more aggressive with the wide receivers and the corners, right? The Lions have made up 3 points, which is huge. You're going to win a lot more games. More importantly, the penalties, I think, are telling of the style that we're trying to play, this defense. They're trying to be more aggressive, and those penalties are going to kill you on a team that is not disciplined enough. Those penalties are going to kill the team that, doesn't have the right identity, that they can't turn it around, right? They can't go into the next 3 downs and shut you down, which we've seen from this defense. They get a penalty, they move them up the field, and they go another 3 and out. They didn't score. Or they maybe get a cheap field goal. That's huge. So from the eye test, yes, it looks terrible when you see all of these yards. But why are they getting all these yards? Why did Geno have all of these yards? Those of you that are going to watch the tape tomorrow, you're going to find out that this bend but don't break defense, they're playing way back. We had 2 deep safeties quite a bit in that second half, allowing Geno to pick us apart. Everything underneath and over the middle. So the yards are going to come in droves. You're going to give up a ton of yards. That has nothing to do with pass rush. It has nothing to do with the DBs. It was the scheme that they were running. Yep, we're going to let you have as many yards as you want. Case in point, what did they do with Justin Jefferson a couple seasons ago or last season? Right? You shut him down in one game, you let him go for 200 in the next game. That was a scheme. Yes, I mean, when we're looking at it, we're like, man, that looks terrible. You got to shut this guy down. But some of that was let him go off, shut everybody else down to win the game. So some of it's on purpose. But if you don't know that, all you're seeing is, oh my God, this defense can't stop a bloody nose. Now, to that point, of course, I don't think that any receiver should have 200 yards. I don't think that any offense but our own should have, 290 plus yards of passing. And in this case, it was 400 or whatever, 392.
Yeah.
So you have to look at everything and what's going on. So I guess here's where I'll start. The Detroit Lions defense finally found, in my opinion here, the keys to unlocking Aiden. And I said this at the very beginning of the season, that Aiden Hutchinson was going to be able to do a lot more defensively because of the pieces that they were adding. If you remember, prior to the draft, I said the Lions needed to add interior defensive linemen to get push. They needed to add cornerbacks to back them up on the back end of the defense. Brad Holmes did exactly that. I also said we needed to find a commensurate defensive end, not a top tier guy, but what we quickly found out with Davenport was he was a top tier defensive end, not by speed off the edge, not by sacking the quarterback, but by his disciplined play and awareness and the way that he played the position. I mean, this guy was doing everything right, and he was affecting the game in a big way when he was in the game. But I asked for all those things, and Brad Holmes delivered all those things. Now, I understand that there's some people in this space that don't agree with that. They don't agree that we needed interior and defensive backs. I just so happen to get it right. And of course, that's why they're not going to agree with it. They're going to continue to pound their chest and pound their drum over defensive ends. And they've been wrong about everything. And they're still wrong today because we're winning and our defense is much better than it was last year. It's much better than it was the year before that and the year before that. And the numbers will speak to that, but the eye test and watching the tape will speak much more. So I feel like I'm just kind of swatting gnats all day with this. Like, I keep hearing we need another pass rusher. And technically, yeah, we need a defensive end, not a pass rusher. We need a defensive end after losing Davenport. But the edge rusher position, Aiden Hutchinson, is just fine. Just fine. The real strategy to having a top 10 defense this season did not need a top tier pass rusher opposite of Aiden. And if you think that we did, then clearly I think that we're not looking at the numbers the same. And clearly we don't know how this defense works and what positions are doing what in the sense of football, because Aiden is the speed rush end, right? Davenport was your big end. Two totally different styles of positions. Yes, you can get sacks from both sides. You can get a sack from anywhere on the field, from any position. It doesn't matter what position you play. Sacks just don't come from edge rushers, pass rushers, or defensive ends. They can come from anywhere. But you also have to remember that the player that you're bringing in has to fit that, that kind of vehicle, that scheme, that defense. DJ Reader wasn't brought in to get you a bunch of sacks. DJ Reader was brought in to affect the pocket. DJ Reader was brought in to get you center push to then push it out to Aiden or Davenport or whoever's now on the right side, Josh Paschal. And it's working. So let me try to explain, why the numbers can be misleading and used against you if you don't know what the real story is and you just listen to, hot breath spewing garbage that you kind of hear all over the place. That just cherry pick stats. I could cherry pick stats all day and paint you this beautiful picture, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you all the stats. I'll give you all the reasoning, not just some narrative. PFF is good enough at driving narratives. I'm not just going to drive a narrative, but I'll start with this. People that wanted Matthew Judon, he has not done crap this season. that is standing out above the rest. He hasn't done more than Josh Paschal, hasn't done more than Marcus Davenport. So I would say that, you know, when you ask for a player like that, you also have to look at what position they play. What defense did they come from? You can't put a 3-4 into a 4-3, if that makes sense. When you look at a 3-4, you've got 2 extra outside linebackers. Those are essentially your pass rushers. And then you have 3 down linemen, nose tackle and defensive tackles. Sure, one of them could be more of an edge rusher like Aiden's size, but typically they're going to be a little bit bigger in a 3-4. And your pass rush comes from those outside linebackers that you now have 5 guys up on the line. And you can blitz, you can pull, right? You can cover whatever you need to do, you know, within that scheme. So it's a much different style of defense. Some say that you can get more sacks on a 3-4 defense than you can with a 4-3, and they're more designed, you know, like in a NASCAR package or whatever, to do just that. And I would kind of agree. But you can get just as many sacks from a 4-3 if it's designed the right way. So total defense. I guess that's where I'll look first. So far through 4 games, right? 1 freaking quarter of the season, the Lions are 22nd in total defense. So they've dropped 3 spots from where they finished in 2023. But wait, at this same time last year, the Lions were bottom of the league in the first quarter. Just a season ago. So technically, they are starting 8 spots higher than where they were this time last year. So by telling you that, Eric, the Lions are starting out 8 spots better in total team defense. But yet it looks different, or maybe you think you're seeing ghost, you know, like a rerun, if you will. It's kind of what I would say. It's kind of like a rerun. We're seeing kind of the same thing from last year in certain situations. What would you say to that? I mean, would you believe that we're starting 8 spots higher in total team defense?
I could in total team defense, but in passing yard defense, we're 29.
Yeah. What'd you say about what about being 29?
That's where the Lions are at passing yards per game. You know, on their against their defense, they're giving up 258 yards a game.
Yeah. So remove the last game. Where were we?
No, we were probably, I don't know, 15, 16.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, this last game, there was a reason why, you know, and I think I've explained it. There's a reason why all of those yards accumulate. Now, we could have gone up and been very aggressive, right? And played, you know, press man to finish out that game and force them to beat us. Or said another way, we would have been forcing ourselves to beat them, right? And I think you kind of learned something in the NFC Championship game. And that's what I'm going to point back to, because in the NFC Championship game, we're up by, 17 points or whatever at halftime. What did we do in the second half, Eric, defensively?
Nothing.
But no, what did we do? Like, what was the scheme? We went up and were aggressive, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, we were. We were flat out aggressive. We played man on man. We went in, we got aggressive, and we got our asses burned.
Well, he was blitzing as many people as he could every play.
There you go.
The Brian Flores thing. And
so this is a growth moment.
Yeah.
So you learn from the NFC Championship game, when I have a big lead and all I need to do is win the damn game, I'm not going to go in and be just aggressive and go balls to the wall. No, I'm going to keep everything in front. I just learned a giant lesson, you know, that kept us out of the Super Bowl. I'm just going to try to win the game. I don't care about your stats. We don't care if you get 5,000 yards in a game against us, as long as we have one more point than you do at the end of the game.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that would have mattered last year. Let them get 500 yards in the third quarter. As long as we have one more point and we're going to the Super Bowl, that's the only thing that mattered. No one would have given a crap about all the yards.
No.
Nobody. Because we would have been in the Super Bowl.
Well, on Monday night, we didn't win by 1 point. We won by 13.
Right. But you know what? In the last 3 minutes of that game, what were you thinking?
Here we go again.
Here it comes. Because the refs were putting them in position. And then there was a few calls maybe that didn't make a whole lot of sense on offense with Ben Johnson. But I'll digress on that. So anyway, through 4 games, we are 8 spots better than where we were last year. Now, we still have a strong run defense. Now, at the end of 2023, the Lions were 19th in total defense to end the season, 2nd in run defense, allowing 88.8 yards per game. The Lions have one of the best run defenses in the NFL again, had only allowed 230 rushing yards through 3 games before the Seahawks game. Opponents that had just an average of 3.6 yards per carry, and only 40.6 of opponent runs have gained at least 4 yards or more, which ranked 5th best in the league. And now after 4 games, because of the, basically because of what Aaron Glenn allowed the Seahawks to do in the second half, the Lions are allowing 90.8 yards per game, which is good enough for 4th best in the league after only allowing 80 yards, or after allowing 80 yards to Kenneth Walker, which is the most yards we've allowed to a running back this season. And since week 16 of 2022, the Lions still have not allowed a single running back to gain 100 yards in a game. So something is working, right? Because last season, when you get aggressive and you get after the quarterback and you're trying to get sacks and you're getting too deep behind, the line of scrimmage, and you're getting behind Geno and you're getting behind Baker and you're getting behind Jalen Hurts, or you're getting behind Justin Fields or whomever, we would get gashed. Justin Fields has racked up 100 plus yards on us. That didn't happen this year. With two of the better dual threat quarterbacks, right? Now, Geno is not, he doesn't want to run as a first option, but he will. Kyler Murray, we go in and shut him down, which was totally not expected. That was everyone's biggest fear going into that game. But we didn't pin our ears back to try to get sacks in that game. Again, if you understand defensive scheme, I'm not saying you, Eric, but if you understand defensive scheme, you're not going into this game thinking that we're just going to get after the quarterback and try to sack him on every play. No, we're going to try to contain. We don't want him to hurt us. We don't want him to extend plays. We just want to contain him. We want to make him throw the ball. My call before that game and before this last game was we got to make him put up the ball more than 40 times. And against Geno and the Seahawks, he put up the ball like 55 times or whatever it was, 54, 52, something like that. And that's exactly what we did. So 2 weeks in a row, we've got mobile or dual threat quarterbacks that can hurt you. And the Lions played, containment defense and then bend but don't break defense in the second half so that they could get out of the game with a W. But quarterback containment, like this is the biggest Achilles heel that we have had for a very long time up against these dual threat quarterbacks. Now, this is a huge reason why some were calling for edge rushers, right? Pass rushers to help Aiden stop these mobile quarterbacks last season and the season before, and to get more sacks. That's the exact opposite way to honestly get it done. You don't get more guys going after the quarterback unless you're going to get them down in under 2.5 seconds, unless you're going to record some of the fastest sacks in the league history. That's not going to happen. Some of the fastest sacks in the NFL are not Aiden's. I can guarantee you that. They're some of the slower sacks. Now, this defense has contained two of the most dynamic players, like I just said. Geno Smith and Kyler Murray both were held to less than 40 yards in each game. Both combined, both games combined containing dual threat quarterbacks. The Lions had 4 sacks in that game, or a total combined in those 2 games. Now, Geno was sacked 1 time in the first half with 4 minutes left. So at the very end of the first half, by Rodriguez. Not Aiden, not DJ, not Aleem, not Levi, not Josh Pascal, Rodrigo. And Aaron Glenn did exactly what I was calling for. Slam a linebacker behind Aiden when he's bull rushing that tackle. And that's what he did. Now, the second time, DJ Reader got to him with 1 minute to go in the third quarter. Defensive tackle. And the third time, Levi O and Ali McNeil combined for a sack with 5 minutes and 23 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Not Aiden, not Pascal, defensive tackle. When you have good defensive tackles and you can clearly press the pocket, sacks will come for them. But more importantly, when you collapse the pocket, it's going to force the quarterback to make a mistake. Hopefully. So clearly, in this game versus the Hawks, the interior defensive lineman won the sack game. Not that that matters. And the right answer to fix the Lions' defense was interior pressure, along with better defensive schemes, allowing better back-end play with DBs, keeping the quarterback in the pocket longer, and limiting the big downfield gains, extending plays that allow the defensive line to win their reps and to finally get home. Now, Aiden, he's got a lot of pressures, or he has a lot of pressures. There's a big difference with pressure, and I'm going to try to explain some of that again. I mean, I did a whole video on it a little while ago, and I'm surprised people forget, of all the information that I just gave them. Like, that is the gold standard proof of what pressures and sacks and all that stuff means. I'll try to, throw it on the back end of this episode. But the Lions created one late sack on Kyler Murray the week before, right? And that was by Aiden. But again, I think you have to understand what the scheme of the day is calling for. If Aiden is not winning one-on-ones, you can't blame the other edge rusher. Or you can't blame the defensive end, I should say, not edge rusher. You can't blame them for what Aiden's not doing. You have to blame Aiden. You have 15 pressures against a third-tier left tackle or right tackle, and you're not getting to the quarterback? How is that Davenport's problem? How is that Pascal's problem? Or how is that Matthew Judon's problem? It's not. It's Aiden's problem. So nobody else on the defense is going to help you win your one-on-one because they weren't double teaming you. You got to win it. So again, I would caution you to understand the scheme philosophy, not the numbers by themselves. Any comments on any of that?
No, just our defense against the Seahawks was on the field for more than 30 minutes of the game. They were out there for a very long extended period of time, especially in the second half. Jared Goff throws a 70-yard pass to JMO, took 10, 12 seconds off the clock. And our defense has to go right back out there for another long drive by the Seahawks. So that's one reason that some of the numbers are kind of skewed. And Wayne Rogers, I think it was Wayne, brought that up in the chat, was one of the guys. Yeah, Wayne Rogers. When the D's out there for that much amount of time, of course the numbers are going to get kind of skewed. When our offense isn't running the ball more, which I thought was kind of weird that we weren't running it more late in the game. So that might have affected the numbers on defense just a little bit as well.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So Aiden's got some easy assignments this year. I hope I fixed the reverb. I don't know why I can't hear it, but
We'll do it.
here's the thing. Aiden had an easy assignment again against the Seahawks. He went up against a third string offensive lineman for the fourth straight week and couldn't find his way to Geno. But again, I'm not blaming Aiden because the scheme was saying, dude, just contain. Just contain. That's all that I see the AG wanted out of this game. Just contain.
It was better to push his guy into Geno.
That's what he did.
Throw. That was better.
Right. And that's what he did. And that's why he got so many pressures. So again, pressure is defined as, you're either affecting the quarterback off his mark, you're affecting the quarterback when he makes the throw, you're making the quarterback move off his mark. The other thing would be just getting into the pocket, right? 1 yard into the pocket, pushing your assignment into the pocket. So pressures, when you look at the number, you're like, oh my God, you got 15 pressures. I mean, you got to remember that just pushing the tackle back a yard, you're getting a pressure. That's why there's a key difference between a quick pressure, a standard pressure. Big difference. Huge difference, in my opinion. And that's seen on the tape, not on a stat sheet. So lots of pressure, no results, again. But again, I'm not totally blaming Aiden. I think that this is scheme driven. I do remind everyone, kind of what pressures are. throughout the season quite a bit. And the simple answer is there are more than a dozen ways to earn a pressure. But the quick pressure under 2.5 seconds, and then there's an average pressure under 3 seconds, are the two that you really need to pay attention to, in my opinion. Now, next gen is calling a quick pressure under 3 seconds. When it was originally designed, when all of these stats came out, the quick pressure were those under 2.5 seconds, not 3 seconds. So I don't know why that they've changed, yet again, the narrative, right, with pressures. But if a play extends beyond 3 seconds, a pressure is almost always going to be recorded. Almost always. It would, if you weren't getting a pressure at 3 seconds, you've got a big problem. The quick pressure, though, is how you should really analyze a player's effect on a quarterback. And with good quarterbacks, and with them able to get the ball out in under 2.7 seconds, that's why pressure rate under 2.5 seconds is what should be measured. Jared Goff is one of the best to get the balls out, right? I mean, he's getting the ball out in under 2.9. So if you're only measuring pressures 3 seconds and beyond, you're never going to get a pressure on Jared Goff then, right? I mean, you see how that makes sense? Mm-hmm. But that's not the case. So I guess where I'm going with this part of it is if you know how this defense works, and I'm not trying to call anybody out independently, but if you know how the defense works, and not to think the defense only works with edge rushers, pass rushers, and sacks, because that's not how it works. So far, Aiden has a bunch of sacks against third-tier tackles and largely disappeared in the last 2 games other than gaudy pressure numbers. Maybe you need to let that sink in for a moment. We just scathed the Seahawks prior to this game by saying what? Have they been tested yet? They've gone up against all these crap teams. Have they been tested yet? So why are we not saying the same thing about one of our own? Aiden, you've gone up against third-tier tackles. Have you been tested yet this season? And again, this is not about Aiden. I'm just throwing the analogy out there. If we're going to talk about an entire team not being tested, what about a player in the same sense? But again, I don't feel like this game and the scheme that was being played within was meant to just get a boatload of pressure and no sacks, or vice versa, a bunch of sacks, and a lot of pressure or whatever. I feel like this game and the scheme was played to win the game. That's it. From any which way they could to win this game, that's all they wanted to do. Personnel. So let's talk about personnel for just a second. Understanding again how defense works and what the scheme of the defense does will help you understand what is needed for personnel. The Lions don't run a traditional 4-3, single gap, base front. For starters, they use multiple nickel and dime sub packages almost every play. They mix and disguise their fronts in multiple looks, which in theory frees up edge rushers more often. The Lions don't run single gap scheme. They run gap and a half scheme, which puts more responsibility on the 4 men up front and is designed to free up linebackers, which Aaron Glenn has not been blitzing as often as he should, at least in my opinion. I think if we're sending linebackers more often, we're going to have more sacks, but maybe that's not the risk he's willing to take by allowing the middle of the defense even be more wide open. So at the end of the day, it was exactly what I called for in the pregame. Slam, like I said earlier, slam the linebacker behind Aiden, get a sack. It worked. But at the end of the day, I guess what I'm saying here is you kind of really have to understand what this scheme is, how it's meant to be run. Because if Aiden has to work on a gap and a half, so if he's got the outside gap and half of an inside gap, well, he can't totally just get himself free. He's got to play containment. He's got to maintain that lane. So he's not going to get a sack all the time. Same thing on the other side of the ball. Whoever's on the right side of the defense, they have to maintain their lanes. Before, it seemed like it was just a free-for-all. Everybody just do what you're doing. independently, not working together. And then you're getting a quarterback running for 100 yards. You're getting a running back running for 100 yards. You're getting a receiver going for 200 yards. And you're losing the game. But no, this has been different. We're getting a crap ton of penalties, a crap ton of penalty yards downfield. And we're still maintaining proper defense and getting the right amount of pressure. Not a whole bunch of sacks. They're not needed. And we're still winning the game. So you want to complain about getting another pass rusher for what? They're not going to be utilized to go get after the quarterback. It's going to happen naturally. I think that's how this defense is really being operated. It's going to happen naturally more often than it is going to be just pin the ears back and go. Edge rusher versus pass rusher versus scheme. Aiden was ranked number 1 after week 4 last season. And guess what? He's still ranked number 1 after week 4 of this season. No change. But you still want another pass rusher? That doesn't make any sense to me. So you're going to take all of Aiden's sacks away? Because that's what'll happen. If you have another top tier edge rusher or pass rusher and you go speed, all speed, Aiden's going to lose. So if the Lions got worse at any part of the defense, this number should drop. Aiden shouldn't be ranked number 1. If he can't do his job, and if he can't get pressures, then something should have changed. But nothing has changed. Yet he has some very gaudy sack numbers to start this season and gaudy pressure numbers to start this season. And I hope that people are understanding to the fact that those sacks have never come against top tier talent so far this season. And pressures. We will see it happen soon enough when he goes up against top tier talent. Is it going to change? And I won't even get into the fact that last season at this time, no other team had 2 edge rushers or pass rushers ranked in the top 20. But I think Eric gave us a really good stat to start this conversation. We have 3 defensive linemen ranked in the top 20. The Lions are just getting started with DJ Reader. I mean, he's just now really starting to get healthy and acclimated. And you are going to see a bunch more stats and sacks and all of that stuff flying off the page soon when Aaron Glenn decides to dial it up. Now, what I mean by dialing it up is this. The Lions defensive front had one main job to do in the last 2 games. And I've already spoken on it quite a bit this morning. Limit the run. Don't allow quarterback to hurt you with his legs. Against the Cardinals, they played more safe containment zones versus aggressive tack mode. You won't get sacks in that style of a defensive plan unless it happens naturally. Quarterback makes a mistake. The same can be said for the Seahawks game. The Lions were a little bit more aggressive, but they also didn't blitz as often and were predicating the defense on winning one-on-ones while maintaining the gap responsibilities. Each game is different by design. If it wasn't, then the Lions would have no reason to practice before every game. If you were just going to run the same crap every game, why practice? You don't need to. You already know the game plan. Each game is tailored to the game. It's tailored to the personnel. It's tailored to how you feel you can win. They would have, again, no reason to do a walkthrough, period. I mean, just take the week off. We'll see you on Sunday. Now, the biggest part of this defensive scheme change, I think, has been the secondary. Yeah, we've had a lot of penalties. Yeah, we gave up a lot of yards against the Seahawks. But the Lions have been playing more, I feel, of a man defense at times, which is, creating more penalties. And then when we have a lead and we're trying to maintain a lead and trying to close out the game, it seems like we're switching to more of a zone scheme or a prevent style of a defense, which is, more focused on containing the quarterback, make sure he doesn't hurt you for first downs. Don't let the running back get first downs, and then try to limit the pass game. And you're going to see a bunch of stats flying up against you when we're in that mode. It's every team. Look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last night. It's exactly what they were doing, trying to stop Kirk Cousins. They were going to let him get 8, 9, 10 yards. It just so happens that I forgot who caught that pass to get him into field goal range. He didn't just go down with the ball. He kept running for like 4, 5, 6 more yards, which gave him an easier field goal. Had he not done that, they may not have made that field goal last night. But again, throughout that game, the last 4 or 5 minutes of that game, you would see Tampa Bay going into that style of a defense. More bend but don't break. A zone scheme where they're kind of sitting back a little bit, just trying to burn clock, keep it in front of them. We definitely have had improved secondary, and I don't think that you can deny that, Eric. I mean, without digging into all the numbers, and I guess I could, but we don't really have a ton of time to.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, do you feel like our cornerback play has been better or worse?
It's better, but like I said, you're seeing ghosts of Christmas past. You know, the big game from Geno Smith with all these yards and them finally getting their running game going, and you know, them scoring some touchdowns, because we've given up 5 touchdowns on the ground, and a couple of them were on Sunday. So you do get flashbacks, you know. So maybe I have PTSD of last year's defense, you know,
right.
And I just want to see. I'm seeing gradual, seeing gradual steps in the right direction. I need to see a big step in the right direction. I want to see us have a game where they throw 130 yards against us and we keep them to 50 yards on the ground, and we win, you know, only letting them score 10 points in a game. We need a few games like that where we have a just dominant defense for me to think that we've turned the corner and, you know, we've arrived. But I just don't know if we're going to get that with this defense. I don't know if we're going to get those type of games, the low scoring. I think we're going to be in it for the pinball high scoring games a lot of times.
Yes, I don't know what you mean by that, because we're averaging 20 points to our opponent, which is low scoring games.
Yeah, and
that's an average. So you've got 20, 27, you know, points scored on average per game. I think the Lions are doing just fine. And I think with a brand new defense with a lot of different players, you know, or a young rookie, you know, in your cornerback room. And I mean, you got a 6th round pick playing right now on the defensive line. You're going to have struggles. You're definitely not going to come in by week 4 and start to shut things down.
Yeah.
I bet you by year's end, we will see it.
Yeah.
You know, so where are we ranked is the biggest question. So you were talking about rankings. Let me get into some rankings real quick.
Sure.
So 2024 total defense rankings through week 4.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit Lions right now are ranked 22nd. They're giving up 349 yards a game. If you remove the Seahawk game, that goes down by like almost 100.
Yeah.
They've only allowed 9 TDs on the season. Okay. 2023 total team defense to end the season, the Lions are ranked 19th. They were giving up 336 total yards. That's after an entire season. They allowed 46 TDs. Okay, let's go to the next box. Passing defense. The Lions were ranked 27th. They were giving up 247 yards per game. Passing defense this year, the Lions are ranked 30th, giving up 258. Again, look at the last game. It's an anomaly.
Yeah.
The last game is why this average is high right now. If you were to look at the previous 3 games here, matter of fact, I don't have it in front of me. If you want to add up the first three games of passing by our opponent and get an average, that would probably help. Rushing defense. The Lions are in 2023 are ranked 2nd in rushing defense, allowing 88.8 yards per game. I don't know why we've allowed 50. Have we really allowed 15 TDs on the ground? No, this is 2023. Sorry. 2023. Ranked 2nd, 88.8 yards per game. We allowed 15 TDs on the ground. 2024, Lions are ranked 4th, giving up 90.8. So we're only giving up 2 more yards per game than last year. 2 more yards per game. And that's what's dropped us to 4th place, because the Ravens are only allowing 57 yards. The Vikings are allowing 75, and the Steelers are allowing 86.8. And again, that number will change. It will get better. Scoring defense. The Lions last year were ranked 10th. I'm sorry, this year, ranked 10th at 20.5 points per game. In 2023, in scoring defense, the Lions are ranked 23rd, allowing 23.2 points per game. So we've gone from 23rd all the way up to 10th. That is huge. That is the number that matters the most. And that is the number that I called the Lions somehow have to find a way to keep these teams under 20 points. And it's exactly what they're doing. I wasn't wrong. Red zone defense. What year is this? Red zone defense. 2023. Red zone defense. Detroit Lions were ranked 29th. They were giving up touchdowns on more than 66% of red zone opportunities for the opposing team. This year, the Lions are tied for 18th. So they've moved up 11 spots.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
They moved up 11 spots, and only through week 4. Like they're just starting to feel each other out. Like in a heavyweight fight, in a 12 round, 10 round, heavyweight fight, whatever. We're in like round 2 right now. We're still just kind of feeling each other out, learning your distance a little bit. So we're getting there. But we're only giving up TDs on 58.3% or scores on 58.3% of red zone. Third down defense. This one's big. Like third down is huge. You have to have good third down defense. I'm surprised at where we were last year. Very surprised. In 2023, the Lions were tied for 10th. Now they were giving up a conversion rate on third down, 37.1%. 37.1. In the playoffs, it was 39.4. 10th place. This year, Lions are still in 10th place. But the difference is this. That number has gone from 37.1 to now 31.7. So we're giving up 6% less third down conversions, which is huge, which means that we're keeping teams off the field. We're able to shut them down. So the defense has not gotten worse. It's gotten better. By every metric that I just gave you, the Lions have gotten better. And that was an end of the year look versus a week 4 look. And we are just beginning. Like we have seen 4 different types of schemes on offense. We have run multiple different types of schemes, and we're starting to put it all together. At the end of the day, I don't know if I really finished my sheet, but I feel like we have better marriage of rush and pass cover. I think the Lions have a better combination of rush and cover, which they hope will lead to more sacks and takeaways. We're not getting a ton of takeaways right now. Lions need to get more interceptions. They need to knock the ball out. That is one area of concern that I have. We're not punching the ball out. We have a very solid pairing right now in the safety room between Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. The Lions, have key players that have made some huge improvements. Levi Onwuzurike, man, huge improvement this year. And then there's Dan Campbell. I mean, obviously he's extremely confident in what this defense can do. I mean, they have put the game on the defense's back. I would say that, yeah, there's some things that don't make a whole lot of sense when, we're calling certain schemes or plays at the end of a game, and it seems like we're giving, these teams too much. I don't agree with it all the time, but why wouldn't Aiden need another edge rusher? I guess is the biggest question. Why wouldn't he need another guy on the other side? Well, one, this defense is pretty deep. Two, it doesn't mean that Brad Holmes isn't going to find somebody. I mean, Davenport's out what is supposed to be for the season, so we do have to replace him with somebody. But Aiden is not going to win any more at his job with another edge rusher. You affect that game through the center of the defense. And it's already proven to be true this season that the biggest impacts has been through the middle of this defense. Josh Paschal just started playing edge rusher. When someone is trying to make an analogy in a video about Josh Paschal or whoever's on the right side of the defense versus Aiden or versus anybody else in the league, yet the dude literally just had his first game at edge rusher, at full-time edge rusher. First game. You can't make a comparison there. You have to give him 4, 5, 6, 7 games to see where he's going to be. And he played solid. I thought Paschal had a very solid game. For loving numbers as much as some people say they do, they just don't know what they're talking about. You can't compare numbers on a small sample size like that. DJ Reader or Lee McNeil are not going to get pass rush win rates, right? When you are inside as a defensive tackle. Yeah, they're not pass rushers. Yeah, they're going to get a pass rush win rate just because they play defense. They're going to get the same type of rates that everybody else does. And they're only calculating that win rate on true pass rushing opportunities, which means when a quarterback drops back, that is now considered a pass rush opportunity. And so you're going to get a pass rush win rating based on what did you do on that play? Did you beat your one-on-one? Did you get a pressure? Did you get to the quarterback? Well, great. Whether you did or you didn't depends on what the scheme is telling you to do. So you have to look at both things. You have to look at the play. What did they do on this play? Why didn't they have a better pass rush win rate? But tacking a pass rush win rate on a defensive tackle makes zero sense. That's for pass rushers. That's for outside linebackers in a 3-4, and that's for your pass, rusher in your Aiden on your 4-3. What do the numbers really mean this year? No sacks or a cheap sack, against Arizona for Aiden Hutchinson, and the Lions, win 2 games in a row. I would say that we didn't need a bunch of sacks to win. We just had to follow the scheme. That's all we had to do. The defensive strategy is different, like I said, in each game. I mean, I don't really know how else to explain this, other than I think people need to watch tape a little bit more. I think that's what it is. And unfortunately, not everybody has time, right? You just listen. You just listen to hot breath, if you will, and then it sways you from one direction to another. Just watch the game and really go and watch the tape if you have time, because it'll explain a lot. It'll explain a lot as to why this defense is much better than where it was last year. Much, much better. And it's only going to get better. All right, final words. Eric, what do you got?
Yeah, try to ignore the stupid Devontae Adams trade thing, because then it just leads to Max Crosby trade, and then everybody wants Max Crosby. Do I want Max Crosby? Sure, I would love him on my team, but I don't want to give up the future of my team for one player. It's not going to happen. Just forget about it. Let that be for some fans of some other team.
So I saw that too. This, I don't know where it came from, but someone was talking about Crosby. Clicks, man.
Yep.
Clicks. So
Click.
when you need to get paid from YouTube, you post content that helps you get clicks. When you don't need to get paid from YouTube, like me, you post content just because it's content. It's, you're having conversations about these types of things, where you get really into, a lot of what this stuff means. And I try not to sound so negative about it, or, try not to be condescending with it. That's not the goal. The goal is, let's have a rational conversation for once. Like, let's really talk about what this stuff is, because education in football, and again, I don't know everything. There's a lot that I need to learn too, but there's a few things that I know I do well, and that's stats and how to apply the stats towards a real situation. And taking the stats and looking at the game tape and what it has taught us as to what the Lions are actually doing. I do not miss a lot. I don't. I've gotten a ton right, more than anybody else in this space. And that's because we put the work in. There's one other thing that I wanted to explain, and that was the differences between like 3-4 and 4-3. So in a 4-3 defense, the edge rushers are typically the defensive ends, right? Who are primarily responsible for rushing the passer with a single gap attack. That is the definition, literally the definition out of the book. Do you remember what gap attack we run?
Gap and a half.
Gap and a half. So how are defensive ends going to be primarily responsible for rushing the passer when they're not even running a single gap scheme? So in a 3-4 defense, the edge rushers are typically your outside linebackers, often tasked with both rushing the passer and dropping into coverage, meaning that they are more of a hybrid pass rusher and a run defender, depending on the play call. Now, essentially, a 4-3 edge rusher are more dedicated pass rushers, while a 3-4 edge rusher are more diverse in their roles. Now, the key difference is this. In a 4-3, there are 4 down linemen, meaning the defensive ends are primarily focused on rushing the passer. So think about it this way. If that's how you were to take our defense and just look at it from that perspective, you have 4 down linemen, but the 2 on the outside are responsible for getting after the passer. Well, that means you only have 2 interior linemen that are giving you a push against 4 offensive linemen. How are your defensive ends going to get free? You have 4 guys, of which 2 are giving you the push. In a 3-4, you have 5, of which 3 are giving you a push. Nose tackle, defensive tackle, defensive tackle, that's 3. 4-3, you have nose tackle, defensive tackle, or defensive tackle, defensive tackle. DJ Reader is technically a nose tackle. So the point that I'm trying to make is it's a lot harder for Aiden to win when he doesn't have a dominant interior pressure from dominant defensive tackles or nose tackles. Let me say it another way. Do you think that Broderick Martin and Ali McNeil would give Aiden a better or worse opportunity, Eric? What do you think? Broderick Martin, does he and Ali McNeil give Aiden Hutchinson a better or worse opportunity than DJ Reader and Ali McNeil?
I think DJ Reader's better.
Of course.
Yeah.
So without the Lions upgrading DJ Reader this year, Aiden's not going to have as much opportunity to get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not going to happen. You need that interior pass rush because or interior pressure, I should say, not pass rush. When you get that interior pressure, again, it flips the back end of the offense. Your quarterback's got to go left or right, chocolate or vanilla. You get 2 choices, or backwards and throw the ball away. So gap responsibility again. In a 4-3 defensive scheme, usually the defensive linemen take on a single gap, allowing them to aggressively attack offensive linemen directly. Whereas in a 3-4, defensive linemen need a 2-gap scheme, which means that they need to be able to read the play and potentially take on double teams, impacting their pass rush ability. Now, with a gap and a half scheme, you're kind of leveraging both of those qualities. You can obviously take on a double team, which DJ Reader does on almost every play, and you have to be able to manage the run and the pass. Like, they have to do both. It's very difficult. So without the proper interior defensive lineman, you are never going to have an opportunity as an edge rusher to get home. Sure, you could add Max Crosby to this team. You absolutely could. And yep, you would probably have a better opportunity at total domination in getting after any quarterback. Mm-hmm. But you know what I would do? I would sit back and shotgun and I'd be calling every pass behind Max Crosby and Aiden Hutchinson. And I'd be dumping it off right there to a JMO every single play for 10 yards or 4 yards or 6 yards. And I would dink and dunk my way all the way down the field. That's how you beat it. You use it against them. If you're going to rush those two and take them out of the play, you just dump it right over their heads. See ya. There goes Jahmyr Gibbs. So you have to be careful. You know, there's so many ways that you could scheme against it too. But it is what it is. The Lions are just fine, guys. Look, the defense is fine. If Brad Holmes was going to do something, he would have done it by now. If it made sense, a guy that's been doing it for 20 plus years, that is smarter than all of us combined sitting in one room, he would have done it by now. There's a reason why he's not. He feels confident in what we have. Doesn't mean that he won't make a move. Does not mean that when someone comes available that he wouldn't. But at the other side of that coin too is if you go and invest right now into an extremely expensive pass rusher, defensive end, what's going to happen next year to Aiden Hutchinson when you have to get his contract done? What's going to happen with all of that extra money that Brad's trying to roll over right now to get these other contracts done? What's going to happen to Aleem McNeil? You're going to lose those players. So if you're willing to lose those players and you don't have a bona fide backup right now to fit in, well, I mean, I guess that's the dice you're just going to have to be willing to roll. So that's it really for today. That's all I really wanted to discuss. It's kind of a little bit more of a high level overview of these defensive responsibilities and what it means to have real opportunity with a defense that has an interior pressure. And we're starting to see the fruits of that labor. We really are. Each game is different. Each team is different. And it's going to be that way the rest of the season. You're going to see some games we have a ton of sacks. You're going to see a lot of games in a row we might not have any sacks. But as long as we're winning the damn game, that's all that matters. And lastly, our defensive backfield play has really allowed, I didn't even get into all the stats I wanted to get into, so I may carry this into a video, but when you look at time to throw and then time to quarterback for Aiden Hutchinson and everything else, our defensive backfield has allowed Aiden more time to get to the quarterback. What's alarming is he's not getting there quick enough. That's what's alarming. He's not getting there in under 2.5 seconds or under 3 seconds as often enough as he should be. So his sacks and that are usually coming after 3 seconds. That's alarming to me. I don't know why yet until we watch the rest of the tape tomorrow. I think at 5 p.m. is when we have it scheduled after the noon games. Join us. If you're a member, it'll be open to everybody. Eric, what are your final thoughts? And then we'll bounce out.
All right. My final thoughts on the first quarter of the season. Jake Bates has 1 miss of 1 extra point. So Jake Bates is not a problem. Just like I said, he's going to be fine.
Jake Bates. Oh, poor Jake Bates. You know, it's really sucks he missed 7 field goals in a practice because everyone was like, oh my God.
He took a lot of flack, dude. A lot.
He's been great to watch. You know what I loved about Dan Campbell saying the other day is he just wanted him to get to a point, like if they could have got a few more yards in that game, to just take a whack at it.
Yeah, he wanted to try a 73-yarder.
Yeah.
He wanted to try it. A 73-yarder. Could you imagine?
Dude, the whole Ford Field would have melted down.
Oh, my God.
It would have melted down from the pandemonium that would have ensued after that. I mean, it was already crazy in there. I
would go over the rail into the tunnel. I would have fellowed onto the field.
Yeah, you would have been in jail is what you're saying. I would have had to bail you out.
I couldn't help myself.
Oh. All right. Defense is fine, guys. We don't need anything right now. We just need guys to get healthy. I expect Brad to do something. I'm just not sure what or when or who at this point, because the expensive options out there don't make a whole lot of sense. And, and I haven't fully read into the rumor about Max Crosby supposedly saying that, well, if Devontae's leaving, I'm leaving. I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
And not that it matters for you anyway. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But Matthew Judon hasn't done squat, so he wasn't the answer either. That doesn't mean that he wouldn't play better on a different team, because you have to keep that in mind too. So we'll see what happens next. What do we got for tonight? We got Chef on at 7 p.m. tonight on the All Grit Pod. Tomorrow we've got the tape review at 5 p.m. It's scheduled for members. If you have a link, get in there, check the community tab, check your notifications. If you don't have them turned on, please turn them on. I've never asked for your subscription yet today. Do us a kind favor and click that subscription button on, and then smash the like button, and then share it with a friend. We'd greatly appreciate it. We'll see you guys all in the next one. We'll bring you out on the new theme song for Rock Down Detroit Lions.
In the city, where the road meets the night, the Lions charge, ready for the fight. Noble hearts and steadfast pride. Detroit spirit, we wear it white. Feel the drive, hear the crowds embrace. Rock on, Detroit Lions will rise. With a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. In the city, where the road meets the night, the Lions charge, ready for the fight. Noble hearts and steadfast pride. Detroit spirit, we wear it white. Feel the drive, hear the crowds embrace. Rocked on, Detroit Lions will rise. Rocked on, Detroit Lions will rise. With a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. With every game, we rise and unite. Fueling the passion, igniting the light. Through highs and lows, we'll stand as one. A legacy, a tale that's just begun. Together